Hi guys, how are you? Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are having a great week. So we are jumping on in here to answer some member questions that people might have. And I thought it was a great opportunity. I think every month, I think this is how I'm going to structure things based on questions that might come up in the feed or personal conversations that I have with some of you. I'm going to, at the end of every month, jump on in here and do a live Q&A for member questions. So as I'm going live right now, feel free to jump in and just ask questions that you might have so that I can answer them or at least try and get you the answers. So if you are joining us live, just shoot me an emoji and let me know you're here. If you are watching the replay, just type in hashtag replay. So we have some really good member questions. A couple of people reached out to me personally, and a couple of people reached out in the event invite and posted their questions in there. So I'm going to be addressing everybody. And as you're watching, just type on any questions that you have in here. If you are watching the replay and you have questions after it's over, feel free to drop questions in there and I am more than happy to jump in and answer them. So the reason why I'm doing this series that we focused on in October, we focused on sales, selling yourself, how to get clients and things like that. And if you missed any of them, just go into the video section of the Facebook group and you'll be able to rewatch some of the old videos. But the reason why I've been doing this series is to promote my 6-week program, the Freelance Starter Guide. And so just as a reminder for everybody, open enrollment ends today at midnight, and there will not be another session until January of 2019. And I'm not sure if it's going to be January or February. I haven't decided, but it won't be until 2019. And I have some really cool surprises of things that I'm working on for 2019. But if you are interested in the program, definitely take advantage now because there won't be another session for another few months. And I'm also giving since today is the last day of open enrollment, I'm giving 20% off to individuals if you haven't signed up yet. So I'm going to be putting the description of that in, the link in the description of the video. So check that out. And if you have questions, feel free to just let me know and reach out. So I want to just start off with telling you a little bit about me because we have a lot of new members this month. I think we're up to like 420 members, which is amazing because the group really wasn't started that long ago. So I want to welcome our new members. If you don't know me, my name is Katie. I live in New York. I worked in the healthcare marketing world and business administrative development for about 10 years. And after my daughter Gracie was born, I decided not to go back to my 9-to-5 job because it wasn't a 9-to-5 job. It was like 60-hour work weeks and working weekends and nights and all over the place. And I wanted a different lifestyle. And so at the time, I had started teaching as an adjunct professor for a college in New York. And I started teaching there, and I was teaching in like the late afternoons and evenings. And it wasn't working. It just was not working for our family. My husband and I just were two ships in the night. We never saw each other because he was working during the day. He'd have to rush home, take Grace over, and I would be out the door. Then I wouldn't be getting home until 11 o'clock at night. And it was a really long commute. I wasn't in love with what I was actually doing. It wasn't my passion, but as you guys know, you got to pay the bills. It doesn't matter if you love what you're doing or not. We got to pay the bills. There needs to be a roof over the head. So I kept on doing it, but unfortunately, I got really, really sick after Gracie was born. And it turns out that I had an autoimmune disease. And so for a really long period, I was really sick and things were really bad. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. Things were really bad around here. And it was hands down probably the worst time in my life. And I knew that I couldn't keep going the way that I was going, like working at night, getting home at 11 o'clock at night, not sleeping that long, and then being up with an infant. And it was just wreaking havoc on my body with this immune disease that I had. So normally I am just not a confident person. I was definitely in my head saying I would love a work from home position, but that's not realistic for me, like what could I possibly provide? Even though I had 10 years of experience, in my head I'm thinking, what could I possibly offer? What services would I provide? And things had just gotten so bad that it pushed me to start looking into work from home positions and figuring this whole virtual world out. And so, to make a very long story short, I started putting my toe in while I was still working and teaching. And I started taking on little jobs. And then that little job led to another little job. And that little job led to something else. And I kept going until I was making enough income that matched my teaching salary. And so I quit my teaching job. And then soon I'm making a lot more than I was busting my butt, traveling an hour to this job that I didn't even like. And now I get to work from home. I'm able to see every developmental stage with my daughter. And then I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. And I decided that I wanted to create Mama's Gone Freelance online school in order to help women that were in a similar position as I was in to create the life that they wanted, to create a life where they're able to be home and have a better quality of life with their family that works for them and make them happy. So that is my goal from this group and our online school. So now that we went through a little bit about me, let's jump into the member questions. So I wanted to give you that background because that will make more sense with some of the answers that I'm giving. So we had a member question. I just want to pull something up real quick. We had a member question from Dion. And Dion, I just want to make sure I'm getting your name right. I think it's Dion Lewis, but it's Dion Edwards. I knew I was wrong. I'm so bad with names. So Dion, welcome to the group. Thank you so much for dropping in some comments and questions. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to just getting to know you better. But Dion had a couple of really awesome questions. So her first question was, what are some of the pros and cons of being a virtual assistant? So I think that's a great question, Dion. I think with everything, there's going to be the pros and the cons, right? So, a lot of times I think people picture like this work at home lifestyle and they put it on a pedestal, right? And they're like, oh, this is just going to be amazing. Like, I'm just going to be like sipping coffee and, no big deal. And it's not. Like, there's of course negatives to it, but like anything, like, if you're working outside of the house and you have your kids in daycare or a nanny or whoever, and you're trying to get them out of the house and then you have your commute, there's going to be pros and cons with that too. So let's go through some of the pros and the cons. So personally, I think a lot of these pros and cons, there's two sides to the coin. So I'm going to kind of like flip back and forth. So the first pro and con could be that you are your own boss. So on the pro side, you're your own boss. Like, you don't have to answer to that person that you might not like or have like that administrative structure that you're like, oh my God, this makes no sense. Why are they doing it like that? You're getting these memos and things like that. You don't have to deal with that anymore. Like, you are your own boss. You get to do whatever you want and structure things the way that you want. So that's really, really cool. On the con side, it can be really scary and it can be really overwhelming because you are handling everything and you have to make all of these decisions about your business, because that's what it is. It's a work from home business. It's not just a job. This is a business and a lifestyle. A positive is that you're able to make your own schedule. And so, Dan, I know you had asked another question. You had asked, how do you structure your business to be flexible enough to maintain taking care of your children? My son has an autoimmune disorder and we have lots of appointments that mommy needs to be at. So that's a pro. So you are able to structure your schedule however you want. So I'm gonna just talk from my personal experience. So I'm sorry about your son, by the way. I can definitely, relate on some level just because of my own autoimmune issues. But of course, having it be your kid is completely different. I would definitely rather it be me than my daughter. So my heart goes out to you. But on the positive side, you are able to make your own schedule. So example, I have a doctor's appointment on Friday that I need to go to for myself. And that's not a big deal. It's not an issue at all. I am able to get some childcare, but when it comes to work, it wasn't a problem at all. How I structure my day is a little bit different than how other people structure it. And I think it depends on what your resources are and what your support system is. So for me, what works is I get up really early in the morning. I am a morning person. I got my cup of coffee and then I just jump right into work. So by like 5:30 in the morning, I'm working. And that works for me. And it's like my quiet time. I'm able to get so much done. And so I'll work from like 5:30 to like 6:30 or 7, sometimes a little later, depending on when I wind up getting Grace up, or when she gets up. That works for me. Then I usually do like a big chunk of time in the middle of the day while she's like hopefully taking a nap. And then I do it in the evening when she's in bed again. I do have some help. So my husband is absolutely wonderful. He does have a full-time job and he also goes to school. So he's, unfortunately just not like available all the time, but usually like once a week, like he's able to take Grace, even if it's just for like an hour, and they go for like a walk together or a bike ride or like whatever. And she's out of the house. Then I also have a babysitter that I use a couple of times a month, and so that I'm able to actually like work during the day, not just around Grace's schedule, and that works for me. So that's like my personal schedule that works, and I basically work around Grace. Now, other people do structure it differently. Other people work while their kids are up. And I think that's amazing and awesome. I'm trying to work that in a little bit. And some days are successful, some days are not at all. I'll be totally honest. I'm trying to kind of find like some quiet activities and things for her to play alone. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, I think it really depends on the age of your kids. If you have kids, if they're school age, if they're, going to school and they're out of the house. I know some moms here homeschool, so they're homeschooling during the day and then they're doing work for clients and stuff at night. So it is flexible, but you definitely have to find like what works for you and your family. I do recommend, if you have any support at all, whether it's a family, friend, whoever, if you have resources money-wise to hire support, I definitely recommend just, even if it's a little reprieve, just, an hour, 2 hours a week, just a little something. Like when I hire my babysitter, it is like life-changing. It really is. It has such a huge impact on the amount of work that I'm able to get done, my stress level and everything. So that, long story short, that's how I structure my schedule. when it comes to like, I don't know, having a day where I'm just not going to be available for work at all. Like a couple of weeks ago, Grace and I went to the Bronx Zoo, and it was absolutely awesome. And I'm so glad that we did it. And so we try and go on like, routine adventures and stuff. And there was that day I was just not going to be available. And so I had let one of my clients know. One of my other clients I didn't let know because there was just really no reason. So it depends on what your client relationship is and what their expectations of you are and what you've set for them. So with one of my clients, as long as I'm getting my work done for them and we're meeting deadlines and stuff like that, there's no need for me to be like reaching out to them and being like, hey, I'm going to the Bronx Zoo, or we have a doctor's appointment, or this or that. There's no need. As long as I'm getting my work done, doesn't matter. For one of my other clients, there's a lot of communication with us, and a lot of things on a daily basis that need to be done. So if there is a day when I am just not going to be available for her, I do have that conversation with her and let her know. Or if there's like a specific amount of time, like a big block, a big chunk, like in the morning or in the evening or something like that, I do let her know. So it really depends on your client and what your situation is. Erin, right? It's such a game changer having a babysitter. Oh my God. And I have like the best babysitter too. It's one of my girlfriend's sisters. And so like I'm able to like just trust her, and it's like just such a great situation. So let's jump back into the pros and the cons. So we addressed being your own boss, kind of like both sides, pros and cons of that. We have the freedom to make your own schedule, which is, to me, it's really all pros. I would say the only con with that would be for somebody that's really not good with like organization and structure. That might be a little bit difficult because you're like, oh my God, I have no one telling me what to do. Like you don't have that like administrative manager like over you, which is like a great thing, right? But no one's micromanaging you anymore, and so it's all up to you. So that's like the only, I guess, negative side, I would say. Another positive is that you get to choose who you want to work with. So I think all of us that are in this industry, we've all had clients probably that we didn't love, right? Like we've moved on from them. And me being one of them, I had like a really nasty client once, and I no longer work with him anymore. It was a learning experience. I did one project for him. It was short term, thank the Lord. And that was it. The contract ended, did not renew it. I had no intention of working with him long term. And so that's a positive of being a freelancer, is you're not stuck in one place. With that being said, I do want to address though a misconception that I had in my head before I started researching freelancing and all of those things. I always thought that a freelancer was somebody that did these short-term projects and constantly had to be looking for new work. That is not the case. So it depends, of course, on what your services are. So if you are, I don't know, like a web designer, I would say then yes, you are probably going to be continuously looking for new work to take on because it is going to be more project based. You may be able to find certain ways in order to have like consistent income, where you're able to do like online classes like I do, or you're able to do like maintenance and updating. You might wind up expanding some of your role into like blog posts and things like that so that you can continue some of those relationships with your clients. But outside of those types of services and roles, there's no reason why you can't find long-term clients and have a long-term relationship with them. All of my clients are long-term clients, and so I get a lot of feedback sometimes of people trying to send me business, and I'm like, nope, sorry, like I can't take business. And at first they're like, oh, whoa, like, like, is everything okay? And I'm like, oh no, things are like amazing. Things are great for me. Like my clients are long-term, like they're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. This is awesome, so just letting you know that as well, if that's a fear, because it was definitely a fear for me. Another nice thing is you do get to choose your own rates. So when it comes to the reason why I wanted to jump into kind of my background is so that I could go into these different areas. So if I was to compare my salary now, what I make as a freelancer, to what I used to make in my career before Grace was born, there is no comparison. I will be totally honest. I used to make a 6-figure salary. I made very, very good money. Okay. I was good at what I did, and I was really lucky to have some really amazing jobs and work with some really amazing people and companies. When I switched from that to teaching as an adjunct professor, my salary was like nothing. Okay. So I had this long commute. I didn't like what I did. And then on top of it, the salary was like, it like barely even existed. But it was like enough to at least like pay some of the bills, which is what we needed to do. I now make more than I used to as a teacher, but obviously I am not making that 6-figure salary because I don't work full-time anymore. So when it comes to your rates, it's really up to you. I never share what my number actually is of how much I make. And the reason why I don't, and the reason why it's kind of like a pet peeve of mine when people do share how much they make, is because someone saying, I make a 6-figure salary as a freelancer, I'm making $100,000, let's say. That's great for you, but that person is most likely working full time, right? Okay. So Susie next to her is saying, oh my God, $100,000. How am I going to pull in $100,000? I have no child's care. Like, I want to be able to be with my kids all day, blah, 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 blah. Two different situations, someone working full-time, somebody working part-time, or maybe less than part-time. So that's why I don't share how much I make. What I do say about salaries and rates is you have the opportunity to make however much you want. So you set your rates and create how much you're going to make for that year with the packages that you offer and things like that. So you have the option to be making $100,000 a year or whatever it is that you want. If you're working part-time, you have the option to be pulling in whatever it is that's realistic for you. So that's why I don't like putting a number out there. But the world is your oyster. Like if you want to, you can make as much as you want, or you can work as little as possible and still make, a decent amount. So it's really up to you, but you are able to structure your rates and services and packages however you want. Then another option or another pro is the starting when you're starting your VA business, there's minimal cost. So a lot of times people like kind of shy away from doing starting their own business because they're like, I don't have money to start my own business, but with a virtual assistant business or whatever you want to call yourself, a social media manager, branding specialist, whatever you want to call yourself, There is no real startup cost. There's of course systems that you're going to be using, but a lot of them you can find are free. And ultimately, there's really not a ton of cost that you're going to have to sink into your business. So that's really, really nice. You also are able, another pro is you're able to actually do things that you enjoy. So whenever people ask me, what kind of services I should offer, I always tell them, well, identify what it is that you actually like to do. And I know a lot of times people put that out there, but I think you should first make a list of everything that you are skilled to do and have expertise in those areas, and then start knocking it down to the areas that you actually enjoy doing. Because if you're making this huge, ginormous change in your life to now work from home, the least it can be is a positive thing, and you actually like what you do, Now, there are some cons, of course. So you're not going to be getting health insurance, benefits, anything like that as a freelancer. Like, all of these things are completely up to you. So that is what a freelancer is. Like, no employer, no one hiring you is going to be paying for those things. So when you are thinking about your rates and how much you're going to be making, those are things that you should be factoring into it, so that you are making enough to be paying for health insurance and to be paying into a 401k and all of those types of things, because your employer is no longer going to be paying for that. Another con is that you are responsible for figuring out your income and monitoring all of that for tax purposes. You're not going to be getting, a W-2 in the mail from your employer anymore. All of this stuff is on you. Another con is that you're going to be invoicing clients and creating contracts and things like that, versus if you're just, go work for a company, you're not going to have to continuously be creating contracts and invoices and billing and all of that kind of stuff. And then the last con that I think there is you have to kind of figure out for tax purposes, if you're going to be a sole entrepreneur, an LLC, all of those things, which can be a little overwhelming and stressful. It's not as overwhelming as you think, but I definitely recommend sitting down with an accountant to identify what the best strategy is for you, based on your income and your goals and things like that. I don't like to give that advice because everyone's situation is different, but I definitely recommend sitting down with your accountant and figuring that out. So those are kind of some of the pros and cons. Let me see what other questions we had. So we had another question. It was, what is an expert, and how do you know if you should trust this person? I think that's a great question, because we're constantly getting Facebook posts and YouTube stuff and Instagram, and everybody pretends that they're this expert. I personally do not say that I'm an expert, because I don't think that I am. I consider myself an explorer. I have more than 10 years of experience in marketing and business and healthcare administration and that realm. But I'm not an expert. I'm still learning, just like everybody else. So I think what an expert is somebody that might know just a little bit more than you do, might be in, on the alphabet, maybe is on a different letter than you are. If you're still on letter A and they're on letter P, that's an expert to you, And then to answer this second part of the question is, if you should trust them. So I always think that you should go with your gut. That's number one, because your gut is always going to be right. My gut is never wrong. So always go with your gut. But Secondly, research the person. Like, everybody's on the internet now. Like, just Google them, go on LinkedIn, actually look at what their work history is, because that is something that like you can find if that person's really being truthful or not. Go on their LinkedIn profile and see what their actual work history is, and what they've been doing versus like what they're saying they have done. Because I don't know, I could say I worked for like some huge company, let's say. Well, I could say that, and maybe I only worked there for like 3 months and then they fired me, or we parted ways on really bad terms. But I'm not going to tell you about like me being fired or leaving on bad terms or anything like that. I'm just going to say that I'm this expert, and I worked for this huge, well-known company, right? But now, if you do a little research on that person, you're able to like see the rest of the story, right? So I think just take time to, like, before you invest in somebody, in like following them, purchasing stuff that they're offering, taking part in like mastermind programs, things like that. Just research them and see like if their experience truly is what they say it is. But of course, like, I think being an expert, once you put yourself on that level, I just feel like there's nowhere else to go up from there. So like, I'm just not an expert. I am an explorer that knows like a good amount, and I'm just still here learning so much more, but I'm here to share what I do know with everybody. So I had another question from somebody. I'm really overwhelmed not knowing where to start. Totally get that, right? Because it's just there's so much to think about. So I recommend thinking about where you would like to be in a year. Okay. So think about where you want to be in a year and then work your way back. So how would you get there in a year? Okay, so if you want to be making, and I'm just throwing out like numbers, if you want to be making $50,000 in a year in a freelancing business, okay, you know that. Now let's work back from there. What would you need to accomplish in these 12 months, every single month, in order to hit that goal? Okay, so now we need to look at the structuring of your prices and your packages. So you should then go into one of my live streams that I did. It was called money mapping. And so if you type it in the search bar, or just go to videos and scroll through, I forgot when I did it. But money mapping, and basically I put together like how you should make your budget. And once you make your budget, like your household budget, including everything like utilities, you name it, like if you're buying coffee, on a weekly basis from Starbucks, like whatever it is, put everything into that budget. And then you're able to identify what your actual goal amount you need is every single month. Okay, because then just like coming up with some random number, like I want to make $100,000. Okay, well, that's great, but one, is that realistic? Two, how much do you actually need to cover your bills? And in that budget, you should also be including costs for healthcare, costs for, saving for your 401k, like all of those things. And even like things like going on a family vacation, stuff like that. So that's what you should be including there. And then you're able to get like a realistic number of what you need to make per year. And then you're able to start dividing that down into what you need per month, and then divide that into how much you're going to be pricing your packages, your service offerings, how much you would charge per hour for project-based work, things like that. Okay, so that's where I would start. I would start at looking a year ahead and then start breaking it down, start identifying pricing packages, services you're going to offer, just the basics. And a lot of times we kind of shy away from like doing all of the basic stuff, and we just want to like jump in. We just want to like start networking, and we want to start like, applying for jobs and like doing all of this stuff. And we want a website, and we want a landing page, and we don't even know why we want all of these things, but we do. And we kind of put the cart before the horse. And my best suggestion is, if you are just starting out, take time to do all of the planning work. Okay. And what do I mean by planning work? Create a business plan for yourself and a marketing strategy. So how are you going to find your soul clients? Okay. One, who are your soul clients? Who are your ideal client? Okay. And make a client avatar. What does that person look like? Okay. Where do they hang out? Where are you going to find them? Is it doing, going on job sites? Is it networking in Facebook groups? Is it going on LinkedIn? How are you going to find them? Okay. And then from there, start creating things like cover letter templates, updating your resume, putting together a proposal, putting together a portfolio, so that when you do get to that point of applying for jobs and having conversations with people, all of that other stuff is done. It's ready to go. And now you're just pulling it out. And you having all of that stuff ready to go makes you look so much more marketable and together. And it also gives you a lot more confidence as well. So that is the long answer of where should you start. I think those are kind of like the hardcore questions that that were sent to me. So thank you so much. If you guys have more questions, please just comment below, and I'm happy to come on in and answer them. Lastly, I'm going to be putting the link to my 6-week starter guide program in the description of the video. It will be 20% off. I'm giving you a 20% off coupon because today is the last day of open enrollment until 2019. So if you have any questions about the program, please feel free to reach out to me personally. I take you step by step through all of those planning phases that you need to get done in order to actually take those next steps of business marketing, identifying where to find your clients, creating proposals and contracts, and all of that stuff. And then in addition, we do a group coaching call. You'll have access to that. You'll have access to like a little mastermind program. And then I think that's it. Right? I think that's it. So that is the program in a nutshell. I will have more information in the link in the description of this video. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a good Halloween, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.